shocking mysteries still unsolved at 3 a.m., the devastating truth revealed never again. The clock struck 3, and shadows danced in the corners of the room, twisting in ways that felt almost alive. Whispers echoed through the stillness, and the air thickened with something heavy, something unnatural. At this hour, secrets long buried clawed their way to the surface. The chill that swept through the town chilled bones, wrapping tight around hearts as the bazaar unfolded. A scream echoed from the old Sullivan house, the windows glowing with an eerie light that flickered as if fed by some unseen force. Ever heard about the lost souls that wander the forest? Legends say they still roam, searching for the warmth of a heart to steal. The woods themselves felt haunted, the branches reaching like desperate fingers, clawing at anyone brave enough to venture too close. They say at 3 a.m., if you listen closely, the trees whisper unsettling truths, secrets that could align the stars or tear apart the very fabric of reality. Just last week, a local went missing, leaving behind only a diary filled with frantic scribbles. Each entry spoke of voices, shadows darting just out of sight, and a growing dread that knotted in his gut. Friends found it strange that he talked about a dark figure lurking near the bridge, wearing a hat that seemed too big for its twisted head. It was all too real and too frightening. He snapped a photo just before he disappeared. The image revealed a black shape with hollow eyes staring back. What was it waiting for? The townsfolk were at their limit, holding tight to their doors and keeping their children close. Rumors swirled like fallen leaves. Some whispered about a secret society tied to the local legends, people vanishing to never return, while others claimed they were abducted by something far worse than any man. Law enforcement? They shrugged it off. Just urban myths, they claimed. Yet when the moon was highest, the truth gnawed at the edges of sanity. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect, but back to the mystery at hand. Just as the tales reached their peak, a loud crash jolted through the night, a streetlight flickered, casting ominous shadows among the houses. A group huddled together outside, their breaths visible in the cold, horror painted across their faces. Did they see what everyone else refused to acknowledge? The once calm streets now awakened with fear, questioning who, or what, was truly haunting their nights. Rumor had it that someone vowed to get to the bottom of this, a drive ignited in the pit of their stomach, defiance sparking to life. And as they stared into the darkness, the silhouette at the old bridge began to shift. Was it the same figure they'd been warned about, watching, waiting? Or was it something more? The answer loomed closer, thicker than the fog wrapping around them, promising revelations that could tear their reality apart. What if the truth was even more terrifying than the shadows? The breath of the night deepened, stretching taut with unspoken words and looming dread. The group of townsfolk barely moved, their eyes locked onto the darkened shape by the bridge. It swayed slightly, as if mocking them, and fear coiled tighter around their hearts. Murmurs spread like wildfire. What is it? Did you see it move? No one wanted to be the first to approach, but who would be brave enough? Finally, a voice broke through the uncertainty. It was Sarah, a fiery spirit determined to unravel the secret suffocating their town. With trembling hands, she stepped forward. We can't just stand here. We need to know what's out there. The thought of stepping into the unknown made others pull back, but she forged ahead. The shadows beckoned her, tightening their grip on the world behind her. As she approached the silhouette, the air turned electric, buzzing with tension. Each step felt as if she was walking toward a dark heart, pulsing with the rhythm of something ancient and unyielding. Then, a low growl dripped from the presence. The figure was no longer still. It shifted, and Sarah froze, her blood running cold. For a heartbeat, she could see it clearer, a grotesque shape with hollow eyes, a twisted grin stretching unnaturally across its face. Panic surged, urging her to retreat, but curiosity chained her to the spot, a morbid fascination overriding her instincts. The others watched, wide-eyed. "Sarah, come back. It might be dangerous." Someone shouted, but the warning came too late. In an instant, the presence lunged toward her, its form dissolving into the air like smoke but re-emerging just a step away. With breathless terror, she gasped, stumbling back, but it wasn't just fear holding her in place, it was an inexplicable pull, a call from the void. "Run!" The crowd shouted, now bursting into chaos. They scattered like leaves caught in a storm, sensing the immediate danger. But Sarah stood frozen, transfixed by the creature's eyes. They were endless voids, pulling her in until the dark clouds around her began to spiral. Suddenly, from behind her, a familiar voice called out, "Sarah." It was Tim, her childhood friend, rushing through the turmoil. He skidded to a halt beside her, breathing heavily. He grabbed her hand firmly. "We need to leave. Now." With the urgency of a heart racing against its fate, he yanked her from the trance. The two ran, the world around them exploding in silence as the figure let out a chilling wail, echoing through the night, ringing in their ears like a bell tolling doom. As they raced far from the bridge, questions swirled, panic ebbed, but a sense of urgency hung in the air. What had they seen? What was it after? And why had Sarah felt drawn to it? In the following days, whispers of the old legends grew bolder. The townsfolk gathered, eyes darting towards any shadow, breathing the same fear-laden air. Unanswered questions lingered. How many more had vanished before? Then, it happened again. Another scream pierced the quiet night. What had Sarah uncovered during that encounter? Time was slipping, shifting like sand in an hourglass. Whoever, or whatever, that dark entity was, it was searching, and it wouldn't stop until it found what it wanted. One thing was certain: it was hungry, and its appetite was insatiable. What lay behind the haunting cry? Would anyone survive the next encounter? The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the town shrouded in an oppressive twilight. The once warm smiles on the townsfolk's faces morphed into masks of fear, peeling away the community's comfort. Whispers filled the streets, threading through windows, creeping into homes. "Did you hear it again? What if it comes for us next?" Sarah stood on her porch, Tim beside her, watching shadows cast by flickering street lamps. A part of her still craved answers, yet another part trembled at the thought of that encounter. "What did we really see, Tim?" she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her, eyes darkened with worry. "I don't know, but something isn't right. I can't shake the feeling that it's drawn to you or us." Their gaze roamed the street. The earlier chaos had quieted into an eerie calm, yet tension stretched the air like a tightrope. Suddenly, the town clock chimed 3 times, 3 sharp notes that felt like a death knell, awakening not just the night, but something lurking in the dark. Eyes widening, Sarah felt an invisible thread pull at her, a familiar tug from the bridge. She shivered, knowing the entity was still out there, waiting. What if it wants something from us? The question hung heavy between them, palpable and chilling. Without another word, they decided to investigate. As they ventured toward the bridge, the atmosphere thickened. Every rustle of leaves felt amplified, as if the world held its breath. A distant howl echoed from the unknown, sending shivers down her spine. When they reached the bridge, the air shifted, as if it recognized their presence. The moon cast an ethereal glow, illuminating the planks beneath their feet. "Stay close," Tim murmured, gripping her arm tightly. But then, out of the shadows, a faint whisper floated to them. "Help me please." Sarah gasped, the plea cutting through her heart. It was a voice both familiar and strange, a haunting mix that sent chills racing down her arms. "Did you hear that?" she affirmed, looking at Tim, who nodded, his own fear evident. "Who is there?" Tim called into the dark, his voice steady but uncertain. The wind answered, wrapping around them like a cold embrace, carrying with it a sense of despair. They stepped further onto the bridge, straining to hear. Then a figure flickered in the darkness, wavering like a bad signal, before solidifying into a semblance of a woman. Her eyes were wide with anguish, pleading behind a veil of shadows. "Please, you don't know it comes when the clock strikes 3. Who are you?" Sarah breathed, the air suddenly feeling heavier as dread coiled around her again like a serpent. "I was taken and now it wants you too. You must leave this place," the woman hissed, her voice echoing like whispers in a dream. "You can't stop it. Not alone, you need the others." In that moment, the ground shivered, a low growl emanating from the depths of the bridge, reverberating through the wood. The woman's face twisted in fear, her eyes darting back toward the dark. "What others?" Tim asked, adrenaline pumping through his veins now. But her answering scream was lost in the sudden cacophony of splintering wood and the roar of dark energy spewing forth from the abyss. "I think it's coming," Sarah yelled, pulling Tim back as the darkness surged. The figure before them seemed to dissipate into a flurry of shadows, merging back into the dark. The air crackled and twisted as a malice stirred behind them, and they felt the very essence of the night press in. They turned to flee, the terror fueling their legs, but Sarah felt a strange mixture of horror and determination pulling at her. "We can't run from this. We need to gather the others, we need to face it." As they sprinted back toward the town, a chilling wail shattered the silence echoing their fears, a true reflection of what they were now confronting. Could they rally the townsfolk in time? Would the truth they sought lead them to salvation or doom? With each frantic heartbeat, the darkness beckoned closer, and the answers they sought became ever more elusive. But what if the truth was more horrifying than the unknown itself? The air felt thick and oppressive as Sarah and Tim raced through the narrow streets, fear hammering in their chests. The chilling wail still echoed in their minds, tugging at their nerves like a fisherman trying to reel in a catch. In the distance, the flickering street lamps cast struggling shadows, elongating and distorting their figures as if the darkness itself was trying to ensnare them. As they approached the town square, it was clear that the night was far from over. The few souls who dared to be outside seemed to be in a trance, their faces pale, eyes wide. "They're all terrified," Tim muttered, glancing around, desperation creeping into his voice. "It's like they already know." A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. She spotted Mrs. Henderson standing by her old shop, staring into space. "Mrs. Henderson!" Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. The woman blinked as if waking from a nightmare, and then turned toward them. "You must not be here. It's dangerous," Mrs. Henderson warned, her breath hitching between words. "No one listens, it will come, it always comes." "Do you know what it is?" Tim pressed. "We need to gather everyone and find a way to fight it." Mrs. Henderson shook her head slowly, a tear escaping her eye. "You can't fight what's already inside them. It uses their fears, their pain against them." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her pulse quickening. "The darkness feeds on our insecurities, our secrets," she explained, trembling slightly. "It reveals the truth that we hide, twisting it until it destroys us from within." Tim clenched his fists. "But we can't let it do that. We need to gather the townsfolk, make them see." He reached for Sarah's arm, but she hesitated, her mind racing. "What if we're the ones it wants?" A lump formed in her throat. "What if we're the keys?" The terrified townspeople began muttering, caught up in feverish whispers as if the threads of fear had interwoven with their collective consciousness. Sarah turned toward the others, each familiar face twisted in dread, each hiding their own dark corners. "Listen!" she shouted again, gathering her courage. "We have to unite. Whatever this is, we can't let it tear us apart." But her voice fell flat against the chill, a single gust of wind knocked her off balance, sending a shiver through her spine. Just beyond the heart of the town, a low rumble echoed, reverberating beneath their feet like the growl of some menacing beast. And then, without warning, the clock tower chimed its 3 rings, cut through the air like an axe. Panic surged anew, people screamed, and in that moment, shadows twisted up from the ground, enveloping Mrs. Henderson, who gasped, her scream turning into silence as the darkness snatched her away. "No!" Tim shouted, lunging forward, but it was too late. The shadows danced, hungry tendrils reaching for the others. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Tim back. "We have to find the others. We need to." Suddenly, the shadows pulled back, as if reluctant to chase them. But they didn't retreat far, coiling near the edge of vision, a lurking promise of what was to come. With each heartbeat, Sarah felt the pressure growing, a sense of impending doom wrapping around her. "We can't let ourselves break like this," she urged, but her voice felt weak against the power gathering with every tick of the clock. As they stumbled through the town, a realization dawned upon her. Every corner, every face they encountered might harbor the truth that could either save them or doom them. "Tim, what if the others are necessary? What if?" she paused, breathless with growing dread. "What if we only have a small window of time to confront whatever this is?" Tim's eyes met hers. They both knew they had to act fast, and yet the shadows loomed larger with each passing moment. With resolve hardening in her chest, Sarah took a deep breath. "We need to find them, gather as many as we can," she urged, adrenaline surging. "Time is running out." But as they turned to run, a new chilling sound echoed, a rumble of laughter, dark and twisted, resonating from the very heart of the shadows. It was a jarring reminder that they were not the hunters, but rather the hunted. Would they be able to gather the townsfolk in time and uncover the truth before it consumed them all? Or would they be lost to the shadows forever? The answers loomed in the gathering darkness, more urgent and dangerous than ever. Panic surged as Sarah and Tim sprinted past the urban ghosts, wandering in a stupor, their eyes glazed over with fear. Every step they took sent tremors through the cobblestones beneath their feet, each echoing footfall a reminder of the shadows that haunted them. "Where do we even start?" Tim gasped, his breath coming in short, frantic bursts. The night air was heavy, it felt like they were moving through thick fog, a weight pressing down on their chests. Ignoring the creeping terror that nipped at their heels, Sarah scanned the streets. "I don't know, but we have to find a safe place." Her voice carried urgency, though the words felt hollow against the overpowering silence. "Maybe the community center. It's always been a gathering spot." But the moment they made the choice to head in that direction, the darkness shifted as if alive, a hungry predator stretching, assessing its prey. A distant murmur swept through the muted crowd, knotting Sarah's stomach. Every face that peeked from the shadows was a mirror of their own fright. "The center," Tim muttered, hesitant. "What if it's not safe?" "It's our only chance," Sarah insisted, determination straining her voice. She grabbed his arm, their fingers intertwining, their fear morphing into something fiercer, a shared resolve. Together, they dodged between deserted cars and flickering lights, the chill of the air biting into their skin. The laughter from earlier echoed through the night once more, sending a jolt down Sarah's spine. It felt mocking, taunting them. It knew their plan before they did. "Maybe we can wake some of them up." Tim's voice trembled, a tinge of hope mixed with despair. "If we can get them to see, but what if they're too far gone?" Sarah whispered, the weight of doubt wrapping around her heart. "What if something is already inside them?" The thought echoed painfully in her mind, darker than the shadows closing in. They approached the community center, its doors ajar, creaking like a whisper begging them not to enter. The windows reflected only darkness, a void that seemed to breathe. "Look!" Tim pointed to the inside, where a flickering light fought valiantly against the encroaching gloom. "Someone's inside." Without another word, they raced inside, hope and fear intertwining. The main hall was stark, filled with empty chairs that caught shadows, each one a silent witness to some forgotten gathering of laughter and dreams. A lone figure hunched over a table in the corner. Charlotte, the local librarian, was frantically scribbling in a notebook, her face pale and drawn. "Charlotte!" Sarah shouted, making her way across the room. "What are you doing here? We need to warn the others." The woman looked up, wide eyes filled with a wild intensity. You shouldn't be here. They're coming. You have to leave. The terrified plea sent an icy shock rippling through both of them. But we can't just run away. Tim pressed. We have to save everyone. We need them to see the shadows feed on fear. Charlotte screamed, cutting him off. They'll turn the townsfolk against each other. You must trust me here, read this. She shoved the notebook into Sarah's hands. As she flipped through the pages, phrases jumped out, each one heavy with dread. Fear is the key, the price is betrayal, unity divides. Wait, Tim interjected, twisting the pages. What does it mean? But Charlotte was backing away, eyes darting toward the door. It's too late. They're here. In that moment, the laughter erupted again, louder, piercing through the walls around them. Shadows began to swirl, creeping in as if tasting the air, eager for their next feast. No! Sarah shouted, gripping the notebook to her chest. We can't let this end like this. With a deep breath that felt light against the weight of shadows, Sarah turned to Tim, desperation mingling with determination. We have to confront this, to uncover the truth. If the townsfolk are the keys, then we must help them unlock it. As the laughter crescendoed, the air crackled, and the shadows pressed closer, Sarah felt the weight of countless eyes upon them. Would the truth they uncovered lead to their salvation or their ruin? And could they really bind together to face the darkness that threatened to unravel them all? A thunderous crash echoed from outside, drawing their attention. The night was still engulfed in shadows, but now there was a flicker of light in the distance, an indication that perhaps hope was not yet lost, or a sign of something far worse. The sudden crash unleashed a storm of fear that sent Sarah and Tim to the edge of panic. They rushed to a window, pressing their foreheads against the cool glass. What they saw made their stomachs drop. A group of townsfolk, disheveled and wild-eyed, were gathering outside. No longer just shadows, they were defined, though twisted by something darker. Their movements were erratic, jerking as if controlled by unseen strings, and the laughter from earlier danced around them like a cruel serenade. The same laughter that had haunted them echoed into the night, stretching into shrill shrieks that scraped through the air. It's too late for them, Charlotte murmured, her voice trembling as she backed away from the window. They're lost, consumed. No, no. Tim urged, fear charging through him. They're not gone yet. We can wake them. He shifted toward the door, but Sarah held him back. They could hurt you. Or we can save them. Panic flickered in Tim's eyes, and Sarah could feel her heart race. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, yet there was something deeper clawing at her, a sense of responsibility, a urging to confront the nightmare. Why are we listening to her? Tim spat out, gesturing towards Charlotte. She's just as scared as we are. We need to act now. The shadows loomed larger, their whispers growing more sinister. They twisted at the edges of the room, stretching toward the trio, eager to engulf. We can try. Sarah exclaimed, releasing Tim's arm, her voice rising to offset the chaos. If we can rally them together, we can break this cycle. We just need to figure out how to reach them. Charlotte's expression turned icy. Unity divides. Don't you see? Trying to pull them together will only make it worse. You cannot fight what you don't understand. Her hands trembled, dropping the notebook she'd written feverishly in just moments ago. The door burst open, splintering off its hinges. The crowd, transformed into a sea of unified faces twisted by fear, surged inside. Laughter devolved into a cacophony of shrieks and frantic mutterings. Each townsperson on the brink, tethered to the edge of madness by the shadow's influence, paired wild eyes with frantic mouths spouting twisted words. Help us! One man yelled, his voice breaking, fear palpable. We can't escape it. It's inside us, it's controlling us. Run! Charlotte screamed, her composure fracturing, exploding into adrenaline-fueled urgency. The crowd advanced, confusion merging with aggression, their haunted eyes searching for a way out, desperate for salvation. "Maybe the notebook can help," Tim shouted. Sarah grabbed the pages, flipping hurriedly, searching for anything that made sense. But every line seemed to darken the air instead of illuminating it. "Stop!" one frantic voice cried. "You can't read it. It knows what you're doing. It'll use it against you." "Then what should we do?" Sarah shouted back, desperation and defiance igniting inside her. "Let us in. Help us break free," the townsfolk chanted, their voices merging into a hypnotic sway. They closed in, shadows swirling and unfurling like dark tendrils, as if trying to shield them from salvation. "What if," Charlotte's voice barely pierced through the cacophony, "what if you all faced your fears together instead?" Each breath felt heavier, suffocating under the crushing weight of uncertainty. The room pulsed, shadows shifting as if to swallow them whole. "Face your fears," Sarah echoed. It felt wrong but resonated somewhere deep in her heart. The laughter crescendoed, reverberating through the walls, shaking the floor beneath them. Could confronting their darkest fears truly be the key? Would it lead to freedom, or would it expose them to even deeper horrors? Haunted voices encircled them, betting their fates on an unspeakable gamble. As the oppressive shadows surged and laughter morphed into anguished howls, they stood on the precipice of unraveling. "Together?" Tim whispered, glancing at Sarah, and she nodded, her heart racing with both dread and determination, but as they prepared to push back against the looming tide, the air thickened. And a shadowy figure emerged, a singular darkness rising above the rest. It whispered their names, each syllable echoing through their souls. "Are you truly ready to confront what lies beneath?" Glimmers of hope mingled with desperate fear as the night loomed darker. Would they stand together against their turmoil or let the shadows swallow them whole? Time felt suspended, but the moment was drawing near. Would they step into the unknown, or would this darkness devour them? The air crackled with tension as the shadowy figure loomed closer, its presence suffocating. It wasn't just darkness, it was a living, breathing entity, exuding fear, crawling into their minds. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a loud drum urging her to flee, yet she stood frozen, entranced by its unsettling aura. "Face your fears," the whisper curled around them, winding through their thoughts like smoke, growing warmer, almost inviting. "What haunts you? What chains you to this suffering?" Tim was the first to break the spell, shaking his head fiercely, as if to drive away the dark seduction of the figure's words. "No. We can't. We won't." He stepped forward, fists clenched in defiance. "We won't give in." "Maybe that's the problem," Charlotte muttered, her voice trembling. "This isn't about giving in or fighting. It's about understanding." Her eyes flitted between the townsfolk, who now closed in with unsettling rhythm, eerily synchronized in their movements. A chorus of lost souls. A shrill laugh rang out from the front of the crowd. "Understand? You can't understand what you've never experienced." The man's voice echoed, carrying with it an infectious madness. "Face what lies within. It's your turn to break." Sarah swallowed hard, a lump forming in her throat. "What do we do? How do we face something we don't understand?" "The notebook. It holds the key." Tim shouted again, urgency clawing at his chest as he glanced back at the discarded pages. "There has to be something, a clue." With trembling hands, Sarah picked up the notebook and flipped through the pages, frantically tracing the scrawled notes that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Words flickered through her mind like flashes of lightning, shared fears, darkness, unity. Each word was a thread, weaving a tapestry of terror but also of hope. Suddenly, a piercing wail cut through the air. The townspeople surged forward, their faces twisted in desperation and rage, forcing Sarah and Tim to stumble back against the wall. "We need to remember." One voice cried out. "We need to remember the pain." "Pain?" Tim echoed, confusion coloring his features. "What pain?" As if prompted, a visceral memory bloomed in Sarah's mind, images of loss, betrayal, and insecurities that clawed at her heart. The memories collided with her. She saw glimpses of others, of friends and neighbors lost to the shadows. "Look!" Sarah gasped, pointing at the townsfolk. "They aren't being controlled. They're trapped in their own fears, they're reliving the moments that broke them." Charlotte's eyes widened. "Yes, they need to confront their hurt. Just like we need to confront ours." But just as realization dawned, the ominous figure lunged toward Sarah. Its form twisted, distorting into familiar faces, each one a ghost from her past, whispering her doubts, amplifying her insecurities until she felt herself sinking, drowning in despair. Hands trembling, she crouched lower, feeling the weight of her past regrets heavy against her soul. "No." Tim rushed to her side, grasping her shoulders. "You're stronger than this. We're stronger together." He turned back to the crowd, desperation burning in his eyes. "You don't have to fight alone. Face what you're running from." Their collective cries echoed back, a jumble of anguish curdling in the air, battling against that dark specter. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing every part of her spirit into that one moment. "We remember our pain. Together." The crowd hesitated, layered emotions dancing across their faces. Like dominoes, one by one, they began to lower their heads, confronting the shadows inside them. The air tingled with an electric urgency, as if the very walls held their breath, waiting for what would come next. Suddenly, the figure recoiled, the faces twisting, gnashing teeth as if threatened. "You dare challenge me?" it hissed, each word a dagger slicing through the air. "Together!" Tim shouted, the walls trembling around them, a resonant sound echoing. "They can't take us if we stand united." The shadows writhed, and darkness seemed to hiss, furious at their defiance. But in that instant of clarity, laughter shifted to cries of raw emotion. Would fear truly be their downfall, or would they rise together as one ready to face the unspeakable? Just as the tide of darkness began to break, a blinding light flashed from the notebook. When the glow faded, silence descended, heavy and thick. They had stepped into the void between hope and terror, but where would that lead them? As anticipation hung in the air, time itself seemed to twist. Clearly, whatever they had unleashed was far from over. "Ready or not, we're coming," Tim whispered. "But what will we find when we step into the light?" The light enveloped them, a blinding brilliance that stripped away the suffocating darkness. Each breath felt surreal, as if they were stepping out of a nightmare. But still, the echoes of their own fears reverberated around them, pushing against the fragile boundaries of their newfound clarity. "Now what?" Charlotte whispered, her voice barely above a breath. The shared experience of fear echoed visibly in her wide brown eyes, vastly different from the defiance they had just moments ago. "Maybe we're in some kind of limbo. A place between fear and reality," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But how do we move from here? How do we face what's next?" They stood in a swirling mist that altered their surroundings, morphing from familiar streets to the barren woods behind Sarah's house, where old memories came alive. The branches twisted into faces, hollow eyes boring into them. It felt like the woods were alive, listening, judging. "Don't look at them!" Tim cried out, shielding Sarah with his arm. "They're just manifestations of our past. They can't hurt us if we don't let them." But how could they not let them? Those memories were real. Those feelings were theirs. The tangled roots and haunting whispers of the trees seemed to pull at their very souls. "Remember what we said," Charlotte urged, stepping forward. "We told ourselves we'd face this together." She swallowed, her resolve hardening against the dread that seeped through the fog. "No more running." As if responding to her words, the shadows shifted, displaying flickers of the townsfolk, their faces twisted in agony. One woman's scream pierced the air like a siren, a haunting reminder of a tragedy none of them could forget. The dark figure reappeared, twisted, and grotesque, looming over Charlotte. "You think unity can save you?" It sneered, laughter echoing like a cruel taunt. "What will you do when it all unravels?" Will you still stand together then? Fight it. Tim shouted, anger fueling his voice. We know you're only using our pain against us. We're more than what you've twisted us into. The mist thickened, and with it, a wave of energy surged from the notebook, capturing their attention. Bright symbols and words flashed before them, revealing scenes of vulnerability and strength, illuminating moments of sorrow that had once chained them down. Together Sarah felt her heart pounding, recalling Tim's words, resonating with truth. We have to embrace those memories. We have to show that we're not defined by them. One by one, the townsfolk appeared, their faces no longer as twisted as before. They were scared but alive, vulnerable, yet resilient. They stepped closer, forming a circle around Sarah, Tim, and Charlotte, joining their hands, sharing their energy and their history. It's time to confront the pain, a voice said, breaking through the noise, steady and warm. It was the woman from the shadows, her anguish now replaced by quiet strength. Let us remember together. The figure recoiled, its screams resonating in an agonized pitch. No. You cannot take back what is mine. This is my domain, and you will not escape. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she stepped forward, bolstered by the strength of those around her. We're taking back what belongs to us. We won't let fear weave our stories any longer. Suddenly, white light exploded from the notebook, illuminating the entire scene in blinding brilliance as every painful memory began to lose its hold. Darkness shuddered, collapsing inward against the power of their shared courage, but the light was almost too bright to bear, and as they shielded their eyes, the shadows seemed to swirl tighter, almost trying to combat the radiance. The ground shook beneath them, and the air hummed with a tense energy that felt electric and alive. Hold on! Tim shouted, gripping Sarah's hand, a fierce determination blazing in his eyes. Just as the light reached a deafening crescendo, an anguished roar erupted, and for a heartbeat, everything hung in balance. Then silence fell, echoing with a chilling emptiness. As they opened their eyes, they found themselves somewhere completely different, a strange realm that felt like a warped mirror of their own, a realm where their deepest fears and greatest hopes lay waiting. What is this place? Charlotte murmured, scanning the unfamiliar landscape filled with unfathomable shadows. But before anyone could respond, a stirring movement caught Sarah's eye. From the depths of darkness, familiar faces emerged, but this time, they weren't twisted, they were radiant. Will you join us? A voice beckoned softly, the promise of truth hanging heavily in the air, once twisted souls now inviting them into the depths of a far greater reality. Sarah felt her throat tighten, uncertainty piercing through hope. What does that mean, and is this really a second chance? As the darkness shifted around them, a chilling realization slid into their minds: was it truly a new beginning or just another descent into despair? And as the circle closed tighter, a threatening shadow loomed overhead, waiting to unleash its final revelation. The air was thick with tension, swirling like a storm about to break. Shadows danced around the radiant faces, and Sarah couldn't decide if they were friend or foe. Her heart thudded like a drum in her chest, a primal echo reminding her of the stakes. Join us, the voice coaxed again. Each word dripped with honeyed promises, a tempting lure to the uncertain. But in the depths of their glimmering eyes, Sarah caught an unsettling flicker. Was this innocence, or something more sinister? Do we trust them? Tim asked, shifting closer to the group, the grip on Sarah's hand tightening. How can we know they're not just another trap? Charlotte's gaze shifted between the familiar faces, a whirl of emotions swirling within her. What if they're real, Tim? What if this is our chance to make things right? The figures waiting before them exuded warmth, their smiles inviting. But beneath that allure lay an unshakable darkness that sent chills through Sarah. What if they want something from us? She whispered, her voice tremulous. What if they're still tied to our past? The radiant group beckoned again, their faces shifting into an unsettling blend of sorrow and hope. Your stories are intertwined with ours, a woman said, her voice laden with an echo of lost dreams. We can help you uncover the truths buried together. But at what cost? Charlotte challenged, her voice strong, a stark contrast to her earlier uncertainty. The darkness we just escaped, it can't be hidden forever. As if in response, the shadows around them quaked, palpable anger flooding the air. The twisted figure loomed larger above, its eyes like smoldering coals. You dare question the price of your freedom? It hissed. Every choice comes with sacrifice. A collective breath hung heavy with the weight of implications. Tim's jaw clenched, his protective nature bubbling to the surface. We won't be threatened. We are more than our fears. The figure's laughter distorted the air, twisting reality like a tattered ribbon. Courage is child's play. Faced with the truth of your existence, will it still hold? Don't you see? The love driving you is shackled to the pain you refuse to accept. Stop! Sarah shouted, instinctively stepping forward. No more lies. No more manipulation. Her heart raced. This was it, the moment to reclaim their narrative. She could almost feel the power thrumming against her skin, charged with possibility. The faces grew closer, their radiance bathing them in a soft glow that started to push back against the oppressive shadows. Please, one young man said, his eyes glistening with sincerity. Join us. Acknowledge the pain, and we can all heal together. The walls of the dark embrace wavered, revealing glimpses of moments they had buried. The deaths, the grief, the regrets that had lived in each of them for so long. It was unbearable to see, yet somehow, it drew them in like a moth to a flame. Sarah closed her eyes, memories flooding. It was like holding a mirror up to her soul. We can't just forget what happened. It's a part of us. Tears began to pool, and she felt the heaviness of unspoken truths begging to rise. With a sharp inhalation, Charlotte stepped to Sarah's side, her eyes flickering with understanding. Maybe the darkness is just as important as the light. Maybe it's where we draw our strength. The radiant figures watched, their expressions softening, anticipation rippling through the air. Will you choose to confront your history and stand with us? But before any decision could be formed, the twisted figure roared. This ends now. You are forsaking the very hope you cling to. Lightning burst from the looming shadow, striking the ground around them with a ferocity that sent tremors coursing through the earth. Run! Tim shouted, grabbing Charlotte's hand and pulling her towards the nearest swirling portal, a dazzling escape beckoning through the chaos. Wait! Sarah cried, torn between the darkness and the light. What if this is our chance? Time hung in balance, the air electric with power, the roar still echoing fiercely. The pathway ahead shimmered like a promise, but the shadows crept closer, creeping along their feet like a sinister fog. No more running. Would they confront the demons of their past together or succumb to the chaos that sought to destroy them? Each heartbeat pulsed with a question, what lay beyond the shimmering portal? Only fate had the answer, and it was waiting to be seized. The light enveloped them, and for a heartbeat, time stretched. In the swirling mist before them, the voices of their fears melded with a symphony of hope. Sarah, Tim, and Charlotte stood together, hearts pounding, the weight of the darkness pressing against their backs. The decision loomed before them, a forking path, one led to escape, the other to confrontation. Together, Sarah breathed, a spark of determination igniting within her. She looked at Tim and Charlotte, their faces taut with resolve. We can't run anymore. We need to confront what this darkness is, what it represents. We owe it to ourselves and the town. Tim's grip tightened around her hand, his eyes burning with fierce loyalty. You're right, Sarah. It's about time we stop letting our fears control us. Charlotte nodded, stepping closer. This darkness is just an echo of our own struggles. If we confront it together, maybe we can break its hold once and for all. With one final glance at the radiant figures, they faced the encroaching shadows. As if sensing their choice, the dark figure twisted and writhed, its shape contorting into the faces of everyone they had lost, a reminder of their past fears, their regrets, and their pain. You cannot deny me, it hissed, a cruel echo. I thrive on your anguish. No. You're wrong. Sarah shouted, stepping forward boldly. You only thrive because we let you. You're a reflection of our fear, and we will not be ruled by it. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in every hurt, every wound she had buried. Each memory sparked a flicker of light within her. The other townsfolk, still ensnared by shadows but now perceptibly shifting, began to murmur among themselves. They echoed Sarah's sentiment in unison, their hearts awakening as they acknowledged the truths that had held them captive. We remember, Tim called, raising his voice high above the chaos. We remember our failures, our pain. But we also remember our love, our bonds. We're stronger as one. The shadows around them recoiled, shrieking in anguish, their forms twisting in agony. Charlotte stepped beside them, her voice unwavering. The pain is part of who we are. It doesn't define us, it makes us stronger. In that moment, their collective resolve shattered the illusion of darkness. The shadows shrieked, their grip faltering, as if the weight of their shared pain was too heavy to bear. The radiant figures, now fully revealing their essence, extended their arms towards the approaching light that flickered behind the chaos. Join us. They beckoned. Together, you will find your strength and face what you have hidden. Sarah, Tim, and Charlotte joined hands. Hear even the whispers of those who had once succumbed to despair. We face our fears together. As one, they stepped forward into the blinding light, a dazzling brilliance swallowing them whole. Then, silence, they opened their eyes to find themselves back in the familiar town square. The moon hung high, casting a sliver of light over the streets. No shadows. No darkness. The townsfolk emerged from the edges, blinking in confusion, slowly realizing they were free from the haunting grip that had ensnared them. What happened? Whispered Mrs. Henderson, her eyes wide with disbelief. Sarah stepped forward, her heart swelling with hope and a rush of triumph. We faced it together. We reclaimed our truth. The darkness had no power over us anymore. But we mustn't forget what we've been through. The townsfolk nodded, and one by one, they began to talk, sharing stories that had haunted them. There were tears, but not of despair. This was catharsis. The shadows had lifted, and in their wake, conversations filled with empathy and understanding began to flourish. Tim squeezed Sarah's hand, pride blooming in his chest. You did it, Sarah. We did it. And as they stood together, witnessing the collective healing of the town, they knew this was not just an ending. It was a new beginning. With renewed spirits, they turned to the horizon, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing they would face it side by side, together, no longer afraid. So remember. This is just the beginning. The strength in unity has saved them. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next thrilling story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. It really helps us out. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let us hear what you think, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this gripping conclusion. Your support means the world. Let us spread the word.